Good evening. Thank you for tuning in to Teaching for the Culture. And this is your host, Bianca Goolsby, with my fabulous co host, Kimberlyn Jackson. And we have a special guest today that we're going to introduce. And this is the whole child. How y'all doing today?
Man, I'm so happy to be here. I am super excited, even though we are talking about a very heavy topic today. But I am so excited because God is so good.
Yes, he
And
is.
I am just really looking forward to how the Holy Spirit is about to move through this situation because I know that this is a divine appointment, us three being here today. So, in spite of it all, I am just basking in the glory of the Holy Spirit right now. Okay. So that's how I am. How are you doing down there, Fakila?
I am doing good. Thank you, ladies. And I definitely thank you for this opportunity for joining your show. So I feel your energy. I feel your energy. I love it. This is something that needs to be done. This is a topic of discussion that has been avoided, but now we need to discuss it and we need to address it.
Yeah.
Get into the root.
Get into
And
the root.
there you are. So let me tell y'all right quick. When I say God is good, let me tell y'all just how we even ran across Fakila, and then we'll introduce her, right? Okay. So Bianca and I already had an episode planned for today, right? Because we do this every 2 weeks, right? So we had already said that this is what we're going to talk about, what have you, and then the world exploded. So today we were checking in, like, all right, so do we still want to talk about that? Do we want to make it topical? Like, what does that want to look like? And God was like, hey, let me tell you something. I need you to find a mental health specialist to talk to these parents about how to talk to their kids about what is currently going on in the world right now. Now, I told y'all I'm a life coach, but I don't have the credentials. Okay. I am not a licensed therapist at all. I don't even try to play one. So I made a post, right? And people were sharing it, sharing it, sharing it, sharing it, sharing it. And then April Cobb shared it and she tagged Fakila and she was like, girl, you ready? This was today, y'all, at like 4 o'clock. So she
I think
was
actually it
like,
was at 4:39.
oh my God. So she was like, can you be on at 6:30 today? And Fakila was like, yes, call me. And that is how she even got here. So when I say that God is moving and working in the midst of everything that's going on, that's what I mean by that. So let me tell y'all a little bit about Fakila because I need y'all to understand that she is credentialed. Okay, she is a brown girl mental health specialist, and we want to honor that. All right, so she is a Florida board certified licensed mental health counselor, practicing as a psychotherapist for her own agency called Brown Sugar Wellness. She has experience treating children, adolescents, and adults with diverse backgrounds and ranges of concern, along with training in integrative cognitive behavior therapy and mindfulness meditation. She continues to educate herself by attending local conferences and trainings, and she is hanging out with us today on The Whole Child. So, again, Fakila, thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. So I do want to our last episode, Bianca, do you recall it's girl, my brain. Do you even remember what we were talking
We
about?
were, we were talking about the trauma of our kids right now, and it
Yeah.
wasn't even about what was going on in the world. So I think this is just adding another layer of getting to the root and having those conversations with your children. It's what we talked about last episode. So
Absolutely. And it's just so timely when we created this podcast platform. We had no idea that this was going to happen, right? We were just seeing things in our community and saying, we want to do something. We have to talk about these things, right?
Right.
So now here we are. And we had talked before, like in response to the pandemic, for instance, that was a collective trauma that everybody experienced. But now we have literally watched a man get murdered over and over again on the internet multiple times, right? Our communities are just in absolute disarray right now. And there's just so much going on. And parents are at a loss, I'm sure. I'm at a loss a lot of times for how I even feel.
Right.
But I can't imagine what that feels like for the children. So, Fakila, we really just want you to kind of talk about first, start off talking about how this has impacted you, but then what are the things that we need to do to unpack all of this with our kids?
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. Everything that both of you ladies have identified, you're not alone. Everyone in this whole community, the Black community, we're all feeling the same, some type of capacity, whether it's fear, whether it's anxiety, whether it's just you don't know what else to do, or whether this even triggered any type of past experience and incidents and encounters with the police officers. So I just think it right now with this pandemic, I think it's a little different as how it's hitting, because we're stuck at home and we don't have those distractions such as going to work and being able to move and do the things that we want to do. So for me, myself, I have two sons, two Black sons. I have a 24-year-old and I have a 17-year-old. And going again, having to have those conversations that I'm sure my grandfathers had with my uncles and their fathers, and so on and so on. Yeah. So I have had increased anxiety. I have had increased worries every time my sons leave the house. I have my oldest one that works overnight. So at Sunday, when the curfew started, the rioting, I'm just like, you got to call in from work. You can't go.
Yeah.
Just that fear and that worry. I have brothers. I have two brothers, two Black brothers. I have nephews. I have cousins. I have colleagues. I have friends. I have people who are close to me who are Black males. So yes, the anxiety here is real for myself. Very increased on this. Unfortunately, I have to be able to manage it because I can't live in fear. And we can't live in fear, and my sons can't live in fear, and I can't have my fears triggered to them to where now I'm creating unnecessary anxiety for them. So I think the first thing we have to do as parents and even as a community, we have to be open and we have to start talking about our history. And I'm not talking about just the history with slavery. We got to go beyond, and we have to talk about the good things that we have done as African Americans, and we have to teach our children. And you should be teaching them at an early age, because if you think about it, in preschool, that's when that social growth starts. And a lot of kids, they go in and they're stepping into diversity that they're not used to or they're not prepared for. And then the first time that is brought to their attention that they're different, because children are innocent. But the first time that you have that encounter that now I realize I'm different, that's going to internalize and that's going to impact them in some type of way. So as parents, I think if you start educating your children at a young age about the history and the culture of Black America outside of just slavery, because once they get to high school and they get to history class, what is the first thing they teach us?
Child slavery and the civil rights movement. That's it.
That in itself could be traumatized to a child that's not prepared, because now I just see slavery and I just see the bad, and that can just internalize to where, okay, maybe I'm not feeling good or I'm shameful about being Black, because this is all that we're being taught is slavery. So I know that's one of the things that I've done with my children from since they were little, just talked about that on vacations, visiting Black museums and different things, and just kind of, giving them that opportunity to understand the history, understand our culture, so they can accept their Blackness.
Right. So you know what you made me think about? I have been reading this book called White Fragility, Why It's So Difficult for White People to Talk About Race, right? And I've been very vocal about how it has impacted me. It's actually written by a white author to a white audience. But as a Black woman, it has given me a lot of the words to say in the terminology, right, to place on things. But one of the things that the author talked about in the book is that early racial identification. So she mentioned how you were just saying a preschooler, for instance, notices that we're different, right? So if this is a white child, let's say in a grocery store, and they might say to their mother, look, mommy, that lady has Black skin. And what the mom does is says, shh,
right.
Don't say that. Don't say that. As if there is something to be ashamed about of recognizing that my skin is a different color. It is. That's so like that's not a judgment statement. I have Black skin. Like that's a thing, right? So what we do is from very early, we start suppressing the conversations about race and making it a shameful type of experience where we're not just open and fostering that conversation. So when we're talking to the littles, right? So we're talking preschool age, kindergarten age, you mentioned going to museums or, how to give us like what that conversation might sound like with a little person.
And again, and as a preschooler, of course, you want to identify and use words so their little mind can, accept a concept. So even as a preschooler, and you use a good example, you go to school and you notice you're different. The color of your skin is different. It's okay. It's presenting facts. You have to present the facts that we are different. They're black, they're white, your hair is different, their hair is different, and just telling them the reasons why, but in a more positive way, because the difference is with little black girls and black boys, the fact is their mind and their body is always going to be attacked.
Yeah.
They have the odds against them already. But it doesn't mean that they have to react in a negative way. If they embrace who they are and accept who they are and love who they are, then the insecurities are not there.
Right.
They can be able to accept who they are. So when that time comes to where they identify that I'm different, you're absolutely right. I'm different. I'm black. I'm proud. I'm this. So they can go ahead and they can just they can embrace their blackness and not have to be ashamed about it.
Yeah, I see Tequila's comment over here. She said we need to also allow our kids to ask the difficult questions. And if we don't have the answer, we get the answer. So they always feel open and comfortable to talk about their blackness. We have parents who want to stay silent or not address the blackness. So,
absolutely. Good point, Tiki.
You must know her.
I know her. And then she's absolutely right. We have to be open and we have to be honest with our children. We have to be honest. And they used to say that old saying that, a child doesn't need to be heard. No, but children need to be heard. You need to listen to them. And you have to prepare them. Because a tree without a root is unrooted.
Yeah.
You have to plant those seeds and you have to plant them early.
We've talked about that on the show before about giving kids a voice and making sure that we honor their voice, because even the little ones have thoughts, right? So providing that opportunity to have thoughts. See, y'all, we wasn't making this up.
Right.
Okay. We were not making, this is actually a thing, right? So, okay. So that's with a little bitty person, right? So that's like a preschooler. So now we're in elementary school. Right. So we're talking about, a first grader to a fifth grader. They have recognized that there's a difference, right? So we've gotten past the point of, oh, my hair is different or my skin is different. Now we're starting to get into those dynamics where there might have been some programming at home, right? So now we might have instances of inappropriate language being used, racist terms being thrown around, bullying, or what have you. How do we help our elementary, and not that it's just elementary, but thinking in the context of elementary kids, how do we help them to process what's going on and how to still stand firm in who they are and not be jaded by everything else that's happening?
Absolutely. And again, when we're talking about elementary school, that age, that they're in school more. Again, going with that social growth. Right. So a big part of it is the schooling. You need to educate these teachers as well, because everyone is going to we need a village. We're going to have a village. And you're going to have those teachers, whether they're black, not white, whatever it is, they also got to get on the same level to where they have to embrace it. They have to teach. They have to encourage. They have to empower. Going about everything that's saying right now, this is that opportunity. How do you use that white privilege? You protect them, you educate them. So we have to all be on the same page. But again, going back to, if you're home outside of school and you're in those black families or those black homes, you have to teach your children, you have to educate them, you have to talk to them. Going back to nothing changes, you have to be open. And another thing is, parents have to be careful of the language that they use, also in black households. The language that you use, the certain things that you allow your children to listen to, and the things that you allow them to watch on TV.
Jesus.
Because it also, it gets into the mind.
Yeah.
So the foundation is at home. They see and they learn everything is at home. So what you do at home, that's the foundation. So you have to change that foundation. You have to make it a more healthier environment. Listen, you grown, you rap, you do whatever, but what you listen to may not be the same thing that you need to listen to in the presence of your children, or what you watch or what you say. So you always have to understand, and I do it even with my kids, and I have a son that's 24, but he's still my child. I separate the two. Grown folks are talking. I need you to excuse yourself. Watch what you say around your children. Watch what discussions you talk about. All of those things. Another thing too, and I had this conversation with a friend of mine earlier today, and we were even talking about a lot of things right now for the culture in the Black community, barbershops and beauty salons. That is that safe haven and that's that therapeutic environment. But even then, change the conversations that happen in those barbershops and those salons. Food for thought for these kids. And not only that, food for thought for the culture of the Black adults that are in the barbershop, so that you can have a different type of conversation. Use that opportunity as a teaching moment. Start talking about different things. Start addressing awareness, whether it's mental health, whether it's health, whether it's you need to go get a checkup, how important it is. That is a platform that we have been using for years. The barbershop and the beauty salon. We use that platform right there. It's part of the culture. But even then, how do you change it? Because you have little Black boys that go in there to get their hair done. Beauty salons, you have little Black girls that are going to get their hair done. What are you doing as a barber and as a stylist?
What I love what you're talking about, and I feel like I've been saying this all day, and this is how, like, I got goosebumps right now, because when I tell you, you are saying so much stuff that Bianca and I have talked about online and offline, right? And it's just something how God will bring confirmation about these types of things and just let us know that we're on the right path, right? Because this work is exhausting.
Yes.
Okay, your girl is tired.
I'm floored. I'm floored.
So we are like over here. So okay, I'm gonna say what I gotta say to Bianca. I want you to talk about what was up in your spirit just a moment ago. So what I love what you said, Fakila, is how everybody has a place in this fight.
Absolutely.
Right. And everybody's place in the fight may not necessarily be on the front lines of the protest. Right. So when you mention about a barbershop owner, so in this fight, their place might be to empower the people that come in there instead of giving them all this toxicity and gossip and foolishness, right?
Absolutely.
The place in the hair salon might be to talk to these Black girls about how beautiful their natural hair is and why we're not changing that. We're celebrating that, empowering them and uplifting them, right? That's your place in the fight, so when everybody recognizes where their place is, it makes it so much easier to have these conversations because you know what your purpose is. You know what I mean?
Right.
What you was going to say, Bianca?
I was just going to say, like, first of all, I'm just completely blown away because this is exactly what we've been talking about for months. And it's like, finally, this is confirmation that we're not going crazy, that like, this is not normal. And when you think that this is normal for so long, like, this is not normal. This is not okay. We have to change. We have to change.
Yeah, we have to.
For the betterment of the people, we have to change. And we have to accept that.
Absolutely. So I saw Stephen had a question over here, and he said, how can we come up with a curriculum of our history that can tie in with the school curriculum? So Stephen, it's so interesting that you asked that, because we offline are always lobbying for culturally competent schools, right? And culturally competent and relevant curriculum, right? And Bianca, you said that there's someone who was trying to get an initiative right now for African American studies or something. Can you kind of expand on that?
Yeah, so school board member Lynn Gray in Hillsborough County is opening the door, and we have an initiative with a group of Black excellence where we are fighting to have the curriculum to talk about some of the things of before slavery and incorporating in math, English, whatever their core classes are, to even include like people who invented things, to really hone in that they are kings and queens. So that is awesome. And then there's another school board member that recently reached out to me in Hillsborough County as well, Dr. Stacy Hahn, that wants to help bring the love of reading to our kids, because we're missing that piece. We're missing reading and, exploring, and, we got to get back to that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so Fakila, we've talked about our elementary schoolers, right? So now let's start tiptoeing into our adolescents and our teenagers, right? Because the stakes get higher and higher. We know with our Black kids, whether this be Black girls or boys, that they're
Right.
robbed of their innocence in childhood, right? They are over sexualized. Our girls, our boys are seen as grown men, even though they're 10, right? So, what can we do as parents, as adults that have children in our lives, to talk to them? How do we talk to them about this? How do we prepare them for how the world views them?
Yeah. I know one of the things that I encourage a lot of parents to do is doing a check-in process every day when they come from school. And when I say not what are you doing, and I mean a check-in process, how are you feeling?
Mm.
Because if I use the term how am I feeling or how are you feeling, you have to give me a feeling word.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with that, if you're giving me a feeling word, that can open a dialogue to talk about different things. Have these type of, again, going back to, like you said, those basics, have those conversations. And I get it. Everybody's working parents. We're busy. Some of us work multiple jobs. I myself have been guilty of it. Single parent, 2 children, working multiple jobs and doing, but we have to find the time to sit down as a family with your children, and you have to be openly honest and address things. You have to start monitoring your children at that age, especially at that age, because that's when things start to change and behaviors try to change. So you have to understand when you see your child changing and they're shifting in their behavior. I hear it all the time. Oh, they're just going through hormones, or they're just no. We can't keep blaming it on our hormones. You need to see what's going on with your child. How are you feeling? What's going on? How was your day at school? A lot of times we get the concept of children who are moody and have anger. Those are signs of depression. You got to recognize the signs.
I'm about to throw something, girl.
Don't let it use you.
If you go back for real, in real life, Akila, girl, I know we just met today, but listen, we are clearly cousins, child. Like, we have been talking about this exact stuff, and it is just so validating to hear you say it. Because again, we don't have the credentials, right?
Right.
We just out here trying to educate the people and use this platform to talk to the people. But for you to come in with the credentials and be
With
like,
the credentials.
so yes, this is exactly what needs to happen. Like, okay, let me try to calm
and that's the important part, like me and you talked about. And again, I have had so many diverse positions in my career in the field of mental health. I've done it all. And right now, I think it's just more important that the Black community needs more mental health specialists to give that awareness, to give back to the community, to teach our culture, to teach just to teach the Black community that mental health is real.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as that is a white disease. That is no. Mental health is real. So I think if the awareness is brought upon, and you observe and you see what is going on with your children and you're checking in, then you can address the issues at hand. And let me tell you, I encourage therapy. If you can't do it as a parent, step out and get that help that you need, because sometimes you can't do it as a parent because it's going to be a conflict, because as parents, we want to protect our kids.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that they're okay. And sometimes we may not be in the right space to do that. So get help. Therapy, get it. So I think right now, if you monitor your kids, you have to be aware, you have to be observed, you have to see the signs, and you have to address it. That check-in process is so important. How are you feeling? Okay.
Can I ask you something on that? Your child says how they're feeling. Do you recommend that as an adult we share how we're feeling as well?
Absolutely. And especially during this time right now. It's a lot of adults. There's a lot of adults who are feeling, they have a lot of increase of fear. They have a lot of worries. We've been doing a check-in. I've been doing a check-in with colleagues and friends. How are you doing? And I've had some check-in and see how I'm doing. So they've expressed that they're having fears. A lot of Black men right now, their anxiety is up the roof, especially when the Ahmaud situation came out. They jog at night. They do things. It's just right now a lot of fear. And I don't think that it hasn't been there. Again, like I said, I just think right now during this time, it's now we have to deal with it. because we don't have the distractions. We can't go to work. We can't mask it. We're home. We're stuck. So you got the COVID happening, and then you have this happening all at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's triggering a lot of trauma. It's triggering a lot of uncomfortable feelings. It's triggering a lot of undesired feelings. But stuffing it and internalizing it is not going to be the way. You have to talk about it. You have to process it. Whether it's getting on Zoom conversations and talking about it, showing these Black boys that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to cry.
Yeah.
You're human. If you're feeling vulnerable, say it. Process it. Husbands, talk to your wives about how you're feeling. You just got to get out that shell, and you got to get that, because one thing about an uncomfortable feeling, you could change it to comfortable. You just got to keep on doing the routine. So check in, process, even as a family, just how everybody's doing. I know my sons always, they watch me more than when I think. They can tell when I'm frustrated. They can tell when I have a bad day. They can tell, especially my little one, because he's been home the most with me. So he'll always say, "Ma, how are you feeling? Are you okay?" And I have to tell him, "You know what, Jordan, I didn't have a good day." And we'll sit there on that side of that bed and we'll talk. But I'm telling him and I'm showing him it's okay to express. And then I'll turn around and say the same thing. "How are you doing? How are you feeling? How was your day at school? Did anything happen? Do you want to talk about it?" All of that.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to honor what you just said about that checking in, right? And I'd like to do that with those of you that are watching. If you will drop into the comments, how are you feeling right now? And we want you to be honest, right? So what are the feelings that are bubbling up inside of you right now? So that we can really process our own feelings and feel comfortable in having those conversations with our kids, because it's so necessary. So, Bianca, I'm going to ask you, how are you feeling?
I am feeling renewed.
Mm.
That's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling renewed.
That's a good word. That's a good word. I would say that I am feeling validated. I'm feeling validated in this moment, and I feel seen, and I feel empowered to make a difference and to really be able to use my voice and my platform to change something about everything that's going on. How are you feeling, Fakila?
Today, I'm feeling better than I was last week. Last week, I had a lot of worries and fear. And I admit going into a mild depression, because there's a lot of life-changing events that are going around. So just kind of having difficulty adjusting. So today I feel content.
So we see you all dropping into the comments. Danielle says she feels worried and afraid. Casey says she feels scared and tired. Tasha says she feels overwhelmed. Grown Man Music says, I see a lot of people dealing with mixed feelings and controversy. And I can really identify with that mixed feelings, right? And I know, I was about to say I feel like, but I know that it sometimes is moment by moment. And we often beat ourselves up about that. I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she had been crying, and she was like, I feel so weak when I cry. I don't want to cry. And I was like, ma'am, I need you to make space for that. I need you to give yourself grace and space to feel. It is okay to give yourself grace and space to feel. But as Black people in America, the way that we have had to exist in order to be able to function is we've had to stuff it and stuff it and stuff it, right? So I love that you said when we're checking in with our kids, us being vulnerable as well, to teach them what that looks like and what that sounds like to be vulnerable and to acknowledge what we're feeling instead of stuffing it all.
Absolutely. And with that, it's very important that you have to have some coping skills.
Girl, I was
Coping skills.
I was just about to say that. Go ahead on.
You
Go
said
ahead.
we cousins now. You said we from the same
Listen.
cloth.
I see. Go ahead on and talk to these people, Fakila, about coping skills, what they are, and how you develop positive coping skills.
Right.
Go ahead.
And we all are going to cope different because we all react to things differently. So with the coping skills, you know, that's going to help you manage the stress. That's going to help you manage the fear and the anxiety. Just to kind of give you a little bit of the importance and the reason for the coping skills. It's going to help you manage and function with a positive well-being. And that's part of that wellness. That's part of mental health. The mind, body, and the spirit is connected.
Yeah.
So if you're not having any good thoughts, you're not going to have good feelings, and you're definitely not going to have a good reaction to things. So for those who are having those fears and those worries, and myself, I'm guilty of it too, you have to challenge them. Mm-hmm. And you have to identify facts. Because what happened is anxiety wants to take you to the future, and depression will take you to the past. And sometimes you have both, that mixed feeling, like grown music, just you have those mixed feelings. So you have to figure out, first identifying like, how am I feeling, and being aware of how I'm feeling. Identify, write it down, journal how you're feeling. If you don't feel comfortable talking to somebody else, write it down and be honest about how you're feeling, because it's just a form of release. Going back to what you were saying, stuffing. If we don't talk about it and we stuff, that's going to cause anger. It's going to cause headaches. It's going to cause mood changes. It's going to cause a lot of things, which can lead to depression. Yeah. So you want to challenge those fears by identifying facts. Okay. And this was an exercise that I had to do the other day. Okay. My son has to go to work. He didn't want to call in. Okay. The fact is, yes, he's a Black male. But the fact is, he's safe. Okay. Is he just going to work? Yes. Is he not? Is he alive? Is he? You know, those are some type of facts that you have to do. Have I taught him what to do if he's pulled over by the car? You know, those things. So just to ease my mind, I had to start challenging those negative thoughts to say, okay, let me just stick with the facts.
Yeah.
Stick with the facts. Walking is good. Just walking and meditating. Put you some music on. Music will change your mood. Walking, meditating, staying connected with others, reaching out, talking to friends. Definitely stay away from alcohol during stressful times.
Yes.
Because sometimes we tend to just want to go to the wine, the liquor, and drink. And that, again, is not doing anything, but you're just stuffing. You're not identifying what is bothering you. You're just numbing yourself for the moment. And then before you know it, I'm continuing to be stressed, and I'm drinking more. And I'm
smoking.
Smoking or whatever it may be. You want to kind of refrain from those unhealthy habits. Okay. Another good one is giving time to yourself. Shut social media down if you have to. Turn the news off if you have to. The more you keep looking at things, you're revisiting, and you keep seeing it.
Yeah.
And that's going to take over your mind and your thoughts. So social media, just shut down for a minute. Turn the news down. You don't have to know everything that's going on, because a lot of this stuff you can't control. What can you do?
Why are you smiling over there, Bianca?
I'm smiling because she talked about social media, and this is what I'm talking about. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the burning question is, children, obviously, they're on social media. They have these different apps going, and there's just things happening with them. What are things that parents can do to have intentional conversations with the social media and them using it so often, and what they're watching and what they're listening to?
And again, everybody's parenting style is different. But as a parent, you should be able to have that much control over your child to where you need to monitor. It's your responsibility of what they're doing, and monitor what they're doing. Take the phones from them. Just take the phones from them. And again, like I said, everybody's parenting style is different. So, but as a parent, you're responsible for what your children do and what they don't do. So if you don't want them on social media, then you stay off social media. Lead by example. Hey, you know what? Today, no phones. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to have topic of discussions. We're going to talk. We're going to walk. We're going to do something. Spend time. Take control.
This is Bianca talks about this all the time. That's why she's over there just
I mean, I don't. And if anybody out there in the audience have any other solution to that, by all means, definitely put it in the comments. But that's the only thing that I could come up with is, as a parent, you're responsible for what your children do and don't do.
Mhm.
Take the phone.
Yeah.
Or tell them this is what we're not going to do.
I love it. We
And
look,
that should be the end of the conversation. I
that's
said what
it.
I said as a parent.
Phone, please. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I said as I said. Let me
Yeah.
get that.
So Samiko had a question a little bit earlier. What age should we start teaching these coping skills? Like, what does this look like for an elementary school child? So even if it is what, kids are getting phones younger and younger now, and
Mm-hmm.
access to the internet younger and younger now. So how do we go about training them up with the appropriate coping skills? What age do we start with that?
I would say start earlier than elementary. You can start, and like you said, children. I've seen 2 and 3-year-olds know how to navigate a tablet and a phone better than I do.
Right.
So if they're able to do that at that age, then you start teaching them early at that age, at least between the age of 2 and 3 maybe. But I would say at least those preschool age, start monitoring them.
Mm-hmm. Miranda has a question that just came in. How does mental health or depression look different in boys versus girls?
Good question. So with adolescents, again, like I was identifying the symptoms, a lot of times anger and mood changes are signs of depression in children, but this can be for boys and girls. Absolutely. So you want to monitor the sleeping a lot, excessive sleeping. And when I say excessive sleeping, I mean, yes, children are going to be tired, but the statistics say a child should only get between 8, no more than 9 hours of sleep in a day. And that should be the same thing even on the weekend. So if your child is sleeping too much, mood changes, attitudes, definitely. Girls, they may sometimes do things that are differently as guys, because of course we are different. And yes, we're gonna go through different stages of changes. But for the most part, sometimes even with girls, if they are showing different types of behaviors to where they are dressing differently, inappropriate behavior, those are some of the things that you need to watch. What's going on? Is everything okay? Same thing with boys, or different. So I think it just depends on, you have to kind of like, because depression is one of those diagnoses where the symptoms are pretty much general. I just think with adults and children, the symptoms are going to be different as well as the behaviors.
Gotcha.
It doesn't always come in the form of sadness. Doesn't always come in the form of sadness.
That part is important to highlight because, again, we've
eating habits and eating changes may be different than boys or girls, because statistics show that girls may have more eating habits and different changes. Eating more, eating less, things like that.
So yeah, I was gonna say, when you said that it's not always sadness, sometimes that's what we think about in depression, is that, the crying and all of that, when in actuality it's is the manifestation of the aggressive behaviors that become more prevalent than the shutting down and the crying. And to Miranda's point, I would like you, because I just said this to somebody the other day, that Miranda said anger is a secondary emotion.
Absolutely.
What does that mean?
And anger can also be a sign of sadness and hurt. Just because someone, going back to, like I said, it's a reverse. People rather go to anger before they show the vulnerability that I'm sad. So I really truly may be sad, but I'm just going to turn that sadness into anger. So going back to, again, like I said, I think if we just bring a lot more awareness, mental health awareness, or even just wellness to the community, just educating parents, educating school educators, just whatever. I think, again, going back to that village. things can be identified at an early stage versus, okay, a lot of times when we get assessments or we do that first appointment and we ask those questions, how long has the patterns been going on? Okay, well, they're 15 and you notice the patterns when they were 11.
Oh, wow.
At what point as a parent did you not see that maybe you needed to intervene a little early?
But that's a good question, though. So, at what point, as a parent, do I say, okay, this has been going on for a bit too long, and now we need to seek some type of assistance?
If I recommend, if a child's behavior do not change within 90 days, which we consider that kind of like an adjustment, anything after 90 days, if you don't see any progress, get help.
Gotcha.
Get help.
Yeah. Because I think I like to believe that a lot of it is just the not knowing, right? So like you said, for instance, from the age 11 to 15, well, that's middle school. You know what I mean? Middle school tipping into high school. And they do be tripping, right? As a middle school educated child, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about these middle schoolers, girl. They a mess, right?
Yeah.
And that 7th grade year, child, they lose their whole mind. You hear me? But I digress. So a parent who this may be their first child, or they just don't know, right? So they're thinking, okay, well, they just going through adolescence. This is what happens. They get to tripping and they don't know what to look for to say, okay, so this is an issue here. So I love that you were able to provide that concreteness. And if that behavior changes and it doesn't rectify in 90 days, we tapping somebody up in here like we get to go talk to someone.
Right. Yeah. Because again, like you said, every change behavior that a child does doesn't necessarily have to be identified as mental health. They're going to go through stages. They're going to go through changes. But if you notice that they're having difficulty and they're struggling in certain aspects of this change behavior or whatever it is as they're aging and going through preschool, elementary, adolescence, at some point you need to intervene and say, okay, well, you know what? Something's just not right. I'd rather you overreact than underreact.
That was good.
It's better for you to overreact than underreact. And you could do something as simple as taking them to a primary care doctor and explaining to them. And that primary care doctor should be able to gather enough information to say, you know what, I need to refer you out to a specialist. Or I need to refer you out to a therapist. And keep in mind, just because you go to a therapist doesn't mean that you're going to always have a psychiatrist or medication management. There's a lot of people who just go through therapy and they just need to talk about whatever, or they don't feel comfortable talking to their parents, or they don't, and you build a rapport and you just teach them coping skills or coping mechanisms, or just even how do I manage my anger? We're all going to get angry. It's just how do we react and how do we display our anger? So even if it's something as simple as, okay, primary care doctor, this is what's going on.
So I know we were talking a little bit offline, and I'll be vulnerable and transparent. So I haven't worked for real since November, right? So I don't have medical insurance right now. So if I wanted to talk to my therapist, like we have a special thing worked out so I can talk with her. But what about folks that don't have insurance? And especially with so many people being unemployed due to COVID-19 right now, what are some ways that they're able to get some support, mental health support, when they may not be able to take the traditional route and just bill it to their insurance company?
Absolutely. Now, what I do know is they have here in Hillsborough County, they have the 211 crisis services, and you can call them and they can link you to whatever community resources for funding they have that available. Tampa Family Health is also a good clinic, and they have a sliding scale fee, and they go and again, any of these things they can, with the community resources, you can always link to 211 guy and they can link you to other resources.
Gotcha.
And I'm not sure, there's always funding available. Again, I'm not sure how they're doing the funding right now because there's so many people that are going. Now I know a lot of insurance company just doing the private sector, a lot of insurance company were still holding on and holding on and allowing people to still have services. And they were allowing therapy to be no copay out of pocket for them and just billing. So just researching and calling different therapists or calling different agencies and explaining your situations. Some therapists in private practice, they do sliding scale fees. So those are just some things you just have to ask. But
And
start with the community.
I was just gonna say having that 211 number is definitely a good resource because they know what a resource is
They
at.
know everything.
They've done the research already. So by simply calling 211, then you're able to get connected. I see Shakita is in here. So she is a Brown Girl mental health specialist as well. And
That's
she's
awesome.
she's been on with me before on Beautiful Brown Girls. But she said, I'm available as a resource to help families under my nonprofit, low to no cost. So if you are watching, Shakita, if you will drop into the comments the website or phone number or something so that people are able to get in touch with you to offer those services. Okay. I was looking to see what Ranja said. As an educator, how would you recommend that conversation with the parent when we as a teacher notice a depression with a student, but the parent views the school counselor or school psychologist as sometimes the enemy or the person who will label their child as crazy?
Ooh,
Good
that's a
question,
good one.
Roger. And of course, I don't work in the school system, so that's not my expertise of what the protocol is. However, I do know that there is resources in the school system, such as a social worker and a social, guidance counselor and things like that. But again, that's something I don't work in the school system, so I don't know what a protocol is. I'm sure there's a protocol in the agency. However, I would assume that as a social worker and as a teacher, if you all are working together and identify certain behaviors that you have observed, there should be some form of resources that will come into place to where, okay, well, maybe you need to refer them out to maybe the school assessments or something before you start labeling a child as crazy. Of course, and that's not a term that we use. However, a lot of kids do come through the school system for referrals, and I do contract work as a Medicaid assessor, and I diagnose with a proper diagnosis. However, they can always go and get second this, that, and that. But again, when we gather information, we're just gathering information on the hopes that a parent is being truthful and giving a history. So, have there been cases to where parents over exaggerate because they want whatever certain benefits? I'm sure, absolutely. But my role and other clinicians, and I'm sure they're chiming too, we have what we have to do as clinicians is gather information and make a proper diagnosis. Now, what they do after that is what they do. We can only refer and recommend. I have no control over that. But definitely, in the school system, look and see what the protocol is, because I don't work in the school system, so I'm not able to give an exact concrete answer to Ronja's question.
And I do or have worked in the school system. So what I can say, Ranja, is you want to empower that parent and the school educator or psychologist, social worker, to deal in fact, as Fakila was saying. So it's not us giving the diagnosis, but this is what we're seeing.
Right.
And I think that when parents hear us coming from a real place in our heart, right, and it's coming from a place of I care about your child, as opposed to I'm trying to label your child as crazy, it comes across very differently, and that a parent is more able to receive what you're saying, and at the very least that you're able to at least plant the seed. Absolutely. So that they start to think about and pay attention to what's going on. Fakila, I do want to scroll back up to Ray's question though, because it kind of goes along with that. How do you educate parents about healthy mental health and the importance of it in their child's life if the parent doesn't believe in mental health?
And that's a good one. And we get it all the time. We get it to where we have those parents that come in, or we get the referrals, and I'm just here because I'm referring and this and that. But I think it goes back to, like you said, the approach. It's how you give the approach and how you educate. And you have to be very mindful of how you approach every parent or every adult when it comes to their child. Parents are already protective of their children, and they don't want to hear anything that's not normal of them. So I know, just for myself as a clinician, I try to build a rapport, and I ask them, what is it that you know about mental health, or what have you heard? And let's address that stigma. And then once we start addressing that, and then you can start building a dialogue to where, okay, now you can ease, and now you can educate, and now you can say this, and now you have that. But you definitely have to address that, build a rapport, because a lot of them are coming in with a stigma.
Yeah.
Especially in the Black community, it's already a negative stigma when it comes to mental health. So I always just try to ask them, what is your concerns about mental health? What have you heard? And let's address that first.
Yeah.
That way they can be more open-minded. I can answer their questions. I can submit facts. I can talk about them. I can present pamphlets. I can submit information, talk about it. Go home. If you have any more questions, call back. But here are the resources that you can also look up on yourself in Google and see, this is something that I'm not making up, but this is what this is.
Right. Yeah, I see Keith was kind of going along with what you were saying. He said culture plays a big role, right? And this is why it's important to have representation. I talk about this often, right? So it's important, I feel, for us to have Brown mental health specialists when talking to Brown people, because they understand the cultural nuances. It automatically helps for the defenses not to be as heightened, because we look the same. So this is not a situation where I'm trying to stigmatize your child based on some implied bias that I have. This is me coming as another Black person saying, I'm concerned about your baby, and I want to work with you so that we can make sure he or she gets the help that they need, because this is what I see, and I don't want us to let this go unchecked. Because if we do, it's not going to get better. It doesn't get better on its own. So let's talk and let me offer my services to you so that we are able to get you that information, right? So I don't know if any of you all that are watching are in school or have a desire to be a mental health specialist, but we definitely need diversity.
Yes.
In the field, because so many, again, I go back to this collective trauma that we have experienced, especially in our Black communities. So many of us need these mental health services, and we want to talk to people who look like us. I don't want to have to explain why people always think I'm angry and this is just my face.
Right.
Like, I don't want to have to go through that extra mental exercise to be able to do that, right? I want to talk to somebody who looks like me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we are just about out of time.
All right.
And, girl, this time be flying. Okay.
Yes.
I want you to tell the people how they can connect. I know you mentioned that you are in the process of launching your private practice.
Yes.
And I really want to just be like, girl,
yes,
do it. Okay. So how can the people find you? How can they connect with you? Tell the people where you at.
Okay. So as she mentioned, right now, I am in the early stages of launching my own private practice called Brown Sugar Wellness LLC. So you can reach me by email, and the email is all lowercase, Brown Sugar Wellness, no spaces, 19@gmail.com. And the phone number for Brown Sugar Wellness is area code 813-534-0955. And even if you just need to call to do a consultation, of course, I know people who are in the field. I could possibly give you a referral or link you to the proper services for your needs.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
You are awesome.
Thank you.
You're awesome. And people are saying like part 2, keep going. So we definitely have to have you back. You have to come back.
I would be more than welcome to. More than grateful to come back. Definitely. And thank you for reaching out. And it was the last minute, and we talked, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it, whatever. And April, she's the one who called. She's the one who connected us. So definitely, thank you to her. This has definitely been a great opportunity for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and April Cobb actually has a show on Teaching for the Culture. So their show is what is it called? Diversity and education. Right? Yeah, so they have their show. So this was a God moment that we were even able to connect, and just how God just tied everything together. We just really have to honor that and give him glory for all of that, because
Amen.
this was not Kimberlyn or Bianca. Okay, this was all the Lord. So we absolutely am just so grateful to you, Fakila, for doing this on such short notice. But not just that, for all of the information that you just poured out, because you have girl, we're gonna send you these links so you can go back and listen to these old shows. You're gonna be like, cousin, that's what I was talking. You have confirmed and validated so many things that Bianca and I have been talking about, and really just trying to use this platform to empower parents and empower adults that have young people in their lives on how to break this cycle of trauma.
Right.
We're over it. Like something got to change, y'all.
Yeah.
And we cannot keep doing the same thing expecting a different result. That is
Absolutely.
the definition of insanity. Okay.
Right.
So we are here to bring you all information and put people in front of you that know what they're talking about, because we know y'all get tired of listening to us. But really, we're seeking to bring in experts and to bring in people who can provide an additional layer of information, so y'all know we not just making this up. Like, we really out here, like, this is what we need to do, right? So before we run, Fakila, again, tell them one more time what the email address is and what the phone number is. And of course, we'll put it into the comments and into the description so people can get it after this. But give it one more time for them.
Absolutely, yes. The email in all lowercase is brownsugarwellness19@gmail.com. And the phone number is area code 813-534-0955.
Awesome. And again, I am Kimberlyn, and you all can find me at KimberlynJackson.com. I am a life coach, right? So for any of you all who are looking to connect to your God-given purpose, I'm your girl. Holla at me there. And you can also find me on Facebook at Kimberlyn Jackson, and you can find me on Instagram at Kimberlyn J.
And I'm Bianca Goolsby, and I am the founder of Teaching for the Culture. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Power to the people, man. Power to the people.
Absolutely. Amen.